He's gonna have to fight! Bang! Pressure's coming! Dumped! Hogtied! When you've given everything, what will the record books say about you, Matthew?
And welcome back for Season 2, Episode 30 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Last week, we kicked off with my top fantasy football risers at each position. If you took my advice and you hit on waivers for somebody like Quinshawn Judkins or Darren Waller, then you're celebrating a win from last week. But if you got the Colts kicker Spencer Schrader, then he scored exactly 2 extra points before promptly tearing his ACL and MCL. Suffice to say, he's going to be out for the season, so back to the drawing board there. Then I predicted all the MLB wildcard elimination games. I went 2 out of 3, missing on the Cubs over the Padres. And this week, more fun stuff to be had. Let's crack it open with the way too early NFL awards. It's what it sounds like. We're going to take the first 5 weeks of tape and storylines and tell you exactly who deserves to win all of the big NFL honors right now. These are so rarely the actual winners when we're through the full 18 weeks, but it's a fun exercise in overreaction. We're also good at that in sports talk. There are always a bunch of NFL writers who do this after week 4, and that used to make a little bit more sense when there were 16 games and 17 weeks to play. For my list, I'm going to arbitrarily do it right here between weeks 5 and 6, as it still feels far too early. Who is blazing hot, who is bitterly cold, and who deserves our way too early NFL honors? I'm going to start with the 2 that I think are the easiest. Every single Rams and Jaguars game, there's only a handful of players that I'm at all interested in watching. Your Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year awards are going to come from those 2 teams. Does that narrow it down? Puka Nacua is off to one of those starts like Jamar Chase had last year, where people start doing all this math and making some unreal projections. Through 5 weeks, most yards in the league with 588, most targets with 62, most receptions with 52, most first downs via reception with 31. The only thing you could quote-unquote complain about as a Rams fan or a fantasy manager is he's only scored 2 receiving touchdowns. And yet he even has a rushing touchdown and an added 52 yards on the ground. I think the only competitors right now for Offensive Player of the Year are Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor. And it's kind of unsurprising why. These guys are ranked 1st and 4th in touches per game between rushing and receiving. What Puka brings that they don't is dominant run blocking. I mean, seriously, every bit as good as most tight ends. Plus, Devontae Adams is the number 2 receiver in the Rams offense, and on any play where you feel like you have to double Puka, you're in danger of leaving somebody else on an island with the active leader in receiving touchdowns. Technically, he's tied with Mike Evans. Still, between all of his work as a number 1 receiver, a run blocker, and a decoy, I don't think any other offensive player is impacting their team more. Although he probably won't get a ton of MVP votes, and it's still practically impossible for receivers to win the award, he is the number 1 player I expect to hold on to their way too early award. On defense, you might not have seen enough of this guy in the spotlight until the game on Monday night against the Chiefs. Devin Lloyd is now the proud owner of a 99-yard pick 6 against Patrick Mahomes and the league lead in interceptions with 4. He's the 2nd-rated linebacker in the league by Pro Football Focus, for what that's worth, behind only Fred Warner, the consensus best linebacker for several years now with the Niners. And he has the best coverage grade of any defensive player at any position, and he's a 6'3", 235-pound off-ball linebacker. There's a really good argument that he is the number 1 factor in a huge Jags turnaround as a whole franchise. After that win over the Chiefs, they're 4-1, and they've forced the most turnovers in the league with 14. Last year, they were vying for the bottom spot in NFL history in turnovers forced for a full season with 9, especially for a 17-game season. For good measure, Lloyd has chipped in a fumble recovery, 2 TFLs, 2 QB hits, and some limited pass rushing snaps, so he is a very much complete player. Lloyd's always been a solid tackler and in coverage for his first 3 years, but if this kind of pace were to continue, he would run away with Defensive Player of the Year and probably pull a Lawrence Taylor and win MVP. Speaking of the MVP, I was going to say Josh Allen right up until that travesty of a Sunday night game against the Patriots. You cannot lose that game if you're the Bills, and you absolutely cannot make the mistakes that Josh did between an ugly-looking interception over the middle and a fumble. I think I'll have to go with, I never thought I'd say this, with Dak Prescott for right now. I am almost 100% certain that this isn't going to last, to be fair, but Dak has now played 2 straight games without a top 3-ish receiver in the league, CeeDee Lamb, and in Week 3, when Lamb picked up that ankle injury, it was in the first quarter without a catch. That means the entire rest of the Cowboys' offense has had to really elevate, and Dak has helped them do that. He's second in yards to Matt Stafford. He's tied for third in touchdown passes with 10, third in QBR behind Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. That's a funky list, too. He's got a rushing touchdown and only 3 interceptions on 39 attempts a game, while leading the best offense in the league by total yardage. You look at that, and you start to think, dude, what the heck is going on with the Cowboys? Like, how are they doing this? Dak does go on a run like this every single year when he's healthy, and talent has never been his problem. Consistency and the entire postseason has, where he just can't win playoff games, but he is on an absolute heater. My honorable mention here for MVP is, of course, the quarterback on the best team in the league, Daniel Jones. Yeah. Coach of the year, well, it kind of has to be the Colts' Shane Steichen for now. They had quarterback questions, and we didn't know if they were going to start Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. Remember that? They had a 29th ranked total defense and 24th ranked scoring defense last year. They had serious holes this offseason at receiver, at DB, at tight end, and now they did lose in Week 4 to the Rams, but they still might be the best team in the league. They didn't punt once in their first 2 weeks combined. They have the best point differential, and they're generally super good at everything right now. Jonathan Taylor even looks like he kind of could win MVP out of the backfield. The team with the best turnaround will always have a good chance of their coach getting picked for this one, especially if they win their division, which the Colts should probably run away with the AFC South. Now, I'm kind of deciding on the fly here. I'm going to save some more of these picks for next week. We'll still be way too early, in my opinion, after 6 weeks of the season. And I'll give you more about the rookies and things, because on the defensive side, there just haven't been enough splash rookies, honestly. There's a lot of good offensive Rookie of the Year choices, and there's a Protector Award, I think, now that they're kind of bringing in for the best offensive linemen and things, but I'll get to the rest of that next week. Other history has been made literally all over the place in the league in the last few weeks, so I want to ponder a few more of those. Your eyes have already told you that comebacks are more likely and more crazy this season than almost any on record. Adam Schefter, an NFL senior insider, posted a fact on Threads to that point. The Jaguars beat the Chiefs on this Monday night, as mentioned. It was improbable fashion. Trevor Lawrence accidentally kind of ran the stumble bum play that the Lions threw a touchdown pass on last year. He got up from the ground and ran in for a touchdown. That game made 17 times so far this season, through 5 weeks, that there had been a go-ahead score in the final 60 seconds of regulation. That's the most since the NFL-AFL merger in 1970. There's been a reason to watch pretty much every single minute of every one of the games that's been played so far, no matter the quality of the matchup on paper, and that has been magical. Joe Flacco got benched by the Browns for rookie Dylan Gabriel on Sunday, and then was traded on Tuesday to the Cincinnati Bengals. It doesn't sound all that crazy. Flacco's 40 years old. He struggled. They struggled, the Browns that is, and he did not have a good offensive team around him. Jake Browning was just trying to tread water for Cincy with Joe Burrow out, but I wouldn't call an 0-3 record as a starter, 6 touchdowns to 8 interceptions and only 189 yards a game staying afloat. Now it looks like Flacco will start this week. This guy comes in and gets the keys to the receiver Lamborghini. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's awesome. Again, none of this sounds strange, but remember the destination, the AFC North rival Bengals. Trading any player within the division is rare. You're very seldom going to hear that. But trading a starting quarterback, or at least starting caliber within the division, almost never. This is the 3rd time that a team has traded a quarterback within their division since 2000. The other 2 were also veterans nearing the end of their rope. Donovan McNabb from the Eagles to Washington in the NFC East in 2010. McNabb would then go on to have his worst year as a pro, throwing 14 touchdowns to 15 interceptions in 13 games. And Drew Bledsoe from the Patriots to the Bills in 2001 after Tom Brady took his job. Actually, interesting enough, Bledsoe was fantastic that next year. 4,359 yards at the time was a huge number for 2002, more than enough to get him into the Pro Bowl. Neither of them were quite 40 years old, so history is even less on Flacco's side now. The Bengals are 29th in the league in scoring and dead last by rushing and total yardage, time of possession. They've turned it over more than any other team. You can also just look at the film with their offensive line and kind of go, ugh. Basically, it's a disaster class. Just for good measure, though, Flacco will have some more cracks at history. He's going to have a chance to beat the Packers twice this year, as that's who the Bengals are playing on Sunday. A lot of quarterbacks beat a division opponent twice in a year, every year, right? Think Tom Brady's record against the Bills and that kind of thing. But to do so while playing for two different teams is a lot trickier. The last man to do that was Jack Kemp in 1962. As a starter with both the Chargers and Bills, he beat the New York Titans, who would eventually become the New York Jets in Week 2 and Week 14. Call me a casual, but I had never heard of Jack Kemp before, and I have no idea what you're supposed to do with this information. That's just one of those. But that's what the 2025 NFL season has made me feel so far. Flacco is also going to be just the second quarterback ever to start for both Cleveland and Cincy in a game. And a lot of that is explained by how rare those trades within a division are. Jeff Driscoll was the other. Funny enough, he's actually still in the league as he was just recently cut from the Raiders practice squad. Probably the best news for Cleveland out of this trade is they now have a clear path to get their fifth-round pick Shedeur Sanders into a ball game soon-ish, as he's now the only other quarterback left on the active roster after Dylan Gabriel. This continues to be the oddest quarterback room the league has ever seen. Bailey Zappi, who's played in 15 career games, is going to stick on their practice squad for now, even as he's the most quote-unquote experienced of the bunch. And finally, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold gave us an all-time quarterback shootout on Sunday. Baker, sure, we know that he's a borderline MVP candidate with the offense Tampa has around him when he's really humming. Sam Darnold is also showing that his huge year last year with Minnesota is not just an outlier. He's been real solid, 9 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in 5 games, and he leads the league in yards per attempt. So in the Seahawks-Bucks game, in the 4 p.m. slot last Sunday, these two matched up and could not be stopped. It was the first time in NFL history that two quarterbacks had each thrown for 325 or more yards and completed over 80% of their passes in a game. I struggled mentally with this one. The first thoughts that come to your mind are, how did Peyton Manning and Drew Brees never do this? Or how about Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers? Or Tom Brady and Peyton Manning? Or Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers? Or dozens of other iterations of the game's best and most accurate quarterbacks over the last, say, 25 years? You can mix and match any pair of the best QBs of all time, and they never did this. I'm guessing 80% completions is actually a crazier number than it feels like. I'm going to link a table that shows the all-time leaders in games completing at least 80%. Of course, you knew that Drew Brees and Peyton Manning would be on top of the list, but I didn't expect that no one else would ever have 20 such games for their whole career. What's the point in even trying to predict anything about this year, considering everything we've seen in 5 weeks, you might be thinking? Sports podcast fodder, that's the only thing I can come up with, so I am thankful for it. From around the sportsverse to round us out this week, LeBron James and his second decision are getting trashed on socials. This is one of those incidents that's hard to explain if you don't follow basketball, but it's also hard to explain if you do, in fairness, because it was all just an ad campaign, and it was awkward, not well executed, and it seemed to get people all up in arms about his legacy. Start by watching the ad at the link in the description first for context. So, LeBron has been partnered with Hennessy since last year. That's a pretty awesome sign that the guy is 40 years old and he's finally ready to wind down his career. I really wouldn't be surprised if he gets on some of those icy hot commercials with Shaq before this year is done. He's getting a limited edition bottle of Hennessy in a collab. Big whoop. How he teased that partnership is what everybody's really up in arms about. His first decision, for context, was the whole taking his talents to South Beach announcement with that big press conference, joining the Heat in the summer of 2010. Seems like that one went over a little bit better than this one. What was the second decision going to refer to as LeBron teased it? People wondered. Is he going to drop the bombshell and retire right now? Is he going to announce this upcoming year as his last like we keep expecting? Or is he even going to waive his no-trade clause somewhere and then go form another super team? Instead, the line that the ad writers thought would blow people away is, "I'm taking my talents to Hennessy VSOP. Womp womp." The thing is, I don't ever want an athlete to be judged too harshly over an endorsement. We've all seen guys trying some food or wearing some clothing that they never would to collect a check, and it just doesn't have anything to do really with their personal brand or who they are. Athletes are also, as a general rule, very not so great actors. LeBron in this decision video is a great example, even for a guy who's now done his fair share of acting. This one sellout does not and should not affect anything about his basketball career or his legacy, and I've already read some opinion pieces saying, this is so unserious, and this has nothing to do with basketball, and, Luka's franchise now, not LeBron's. I just cannot see it being that serious. I think it was one not so well executed joke for this ad campaign that we can kind of toss and forget about. That's what I'd like to see, but that's not really how NBA fans work. The National League Division Series are in danger of wrapping up Thursday evening, and the Tigers and Mariners are heading to a Game 5 in the ALDS. I'll predict all of these clinching games real quick. I say clinching games, but I secretly hope that the Cubs and Phillies maybe can make some comebacks against dramatically better teams and win in some improbable fashion. We'll start with Phillies-Dodgers Game 4 for Thursday. The pitching matchup is Christopher Sanchez for Philly and Tyler Glasnow for LA. It's so easy to forget that the Phillies and Brewers had the best records in baseball because of the Dodgers' star power. Philly has so few holes, and they've been that way for a while, just not quite getting over that World Series hump. Glasnow has always been a what could be and not a what is kind of performer. His postseason ERA is 5.51 in 11 appearances, and that's only when he's actually healthy enough to be out there. He won't go very deep by innings tonight. Christopher Sanchez actually finished second in the entire league in wins above replacement this year, only to Aaron Judge. I knew he was really good, but I did not expect that. 32 starts, 2.50 ERA, over 200 innings, strikeout to walk ratio of almost 5. If Paul Skeens didn't exist, this is almost a guaranteed Cy Young season when you put up those numbers historically. Unfortunately, I do still have to pick the Dodgers here because of how great their home field advantage is and their two biggest stars. Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani each had their best month decidedly in the month of September. Hilariously, Mookie only hit .248 with a 783 OPS at home, but whenever somebody in this lineup is down, the others just always pick him up, and that's what depth does for you. Plus, Shohei hit 55 home runs. I'm told that's pretty good. Dodgers in 4, I'm going to say 6-4 final on Thursday evening. The Cubs and Brewers are also on to Game 4 on Thursday night. I flat out do not believe in Cubs starter Matthew Boyd, and especially not to beat the Brewers ace Freddie Peralta. Boyd's regular season peripherals look good. He went 14-8 with about a 3.2 ERA. He made his first All-Star team at 34 years old. But these are achievements that he has never approached throughout his entire career, and he had the best defensive outfield in the league around him. This Brewers lineup isn't about star power. It's about every single hitter trying to just do enough to move that line forward. Number 4 in runs per game, number 2 in average, number 2 in hits, number 4 in walks, second in on-base percentage. There's going to be Brewers base runners all over the place, and the Cubs, I think, are going to give up a big number. I was mildly surprised to see Chicago survive Game 3. Here in Game 4, I'm going to take what I still believe to be the league's best team, Milwaukee, by a final of, like I say, a big number. Let's go 8-2. And when it comes to the Tigers and Mariners, look, guys, it's a Skubal game. Even though it's on short rest, I cannot bet against him. I know Detroit's offense has been brutal ever since the All-Star break, as somebody who's watched almost every single game. And I know they probably won't score 9 runs with 3 homers and 4 doubles like they did in Game 4. Still, they're getting that positive regression back to the mean. It was super unlikely for their offense to be as dormant as it was for as long as it was in the second half. Seattle is a good team. They hit a ton of home runs. They have a typically strong bullpen and even better starting pitching. Still, Skubal got nuked a couple of times by Jorge Polanco when the Tigers had a chance to go up 2-0, and that gave him a no decision in that game too. Angry Skubal is the scariest thing this league has seen since Randy Johnson. Expect his fastball up to 101, 102. Expect that changeup to live in the zone and still miss a ton of bats. That's the best pitch in Major League Baseball by run value, by the way, to Eric Skubal's changeup. Seattle has beaten the Tigers in all 3 of Skubal's starts against them this year, as if he needed any more motivation. If the Tigers bats do anything, I think they'll be able to take Game 5, but it will be tight just like the first couple of games in the series. Detroit in 5, 3-1 on Friday night is my prediction. And we'll wrap it up. Thanks for coming back week after week, or if you're relatively new, happy to have you. Either way, check out all my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, at The Voice of Tanner, X, just Voice of Tanner, YouTube, the whole thing spelled out with spaces, and connect on LinkedIn. Check out the link as well in the description for my powerlifting meet on Saturday. This has been Season 2, Episode 30 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
He's gonna have to fight! Bang! Pressure's coming! Dumped! Hogtied! When you've given everything, what will the record books say about you, Matt?